Good evening and welcome to another edition of Electricity Town Hall, a program being sponsored by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, NERC, aimed at keeping consumers of electricity abreast of happenings in the nation's power sector. This program comes your way every Monday on the network service of Radio Nigeria at 7 o'clock in the evening. NERC is the regulator for the nation's power sector, interfacing with electricity generation companies known as GENCOs, the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, and the distribution companies, DISCOs. I am David Umar, your anchor. The Nigerian electricity supply industry, NERC, is the framework for electricity generation, transmission, and distribution in Nigeria. It's a critical sector that plays a vital role in Nigeria's economic development, fueling industries and improving the standards of living. However, the NERC faces ongoing challenges such as providing reliable and affordable power to a growing population. One area that has remained critical has been the distribution sector, where consumers are given electricity and in turn required to pay for services rendered. Owing to issues surrounding electricity supply, consumption, and bills, the federal government has introduced several initiatives geared towards protecting the consumer, while also providing the investor the enabling environment to get returns on their investment. Today, our focus is on protecting unmetered customers. We'll be discussing the issues of capping, estimated billing, and feeders. In the face of estimated billing occasioned by the absence of meters, how can the customer get value for their money? These and more will be interrogated tonight on Electricity Town Hall as we look at metering initiatives in the Nigerian electricity supply industry, NERC. And tonight, I'm not alone. We have in the studio two principal manager of NERC, Mr. Adamu Ibrahim and Mr. Chukuma Olisa. Welcome to our studio.
Thank you very much. Thank you, David.
You're welcome. And also we have an assistant manager of the commission, Mr. Ahmed Dalhatu, and also an analyst, Mr. Helder Zama. Welcome to the program.
Thank you,
Thank you, and thank you for having us.
All right, tonight we bring to life the phrase that says customer is king. And I'll be starting with you, Mr. Adamu. What is the commission doing to protect unmetered customers?
So the commission, in its attempts to protect unmetered customers in the Nigerian electricity supply industry, introduced what is called the capping of estimated billing methodology. So the principle behind the capping of estimated billing methodology is that the consumption pattern of all metered customers on a feeder should mirror the consumption pattern of the metered counterparts on the same feeder. So the whole idea is that the average of the individual consumption of customers on a particular feeder. For instance, we have 5 customers on a feeder, one of them consuming 100, the other 200, another customer consuming like 250, the fourth customer consuming 300, and another customer consuming 150. The average should be around 200 kilowatts hour. So the unmetered customer on that particular feeder should not be billed more than 200 kilowatt hour. So the cap is actually a ceiling which these schools are not allowed to meter customers above that ceiling. So on a monthly basis, the commission computes the cap for the feeders and issues to the customers. And those caps are also published on the commission's website.
Okay, I know you've mentioned something about capping, but for our listeners, what exactly is the capping of estimated billing and how do customers know the cap for their own feeder?
Okay, so the commission publishes the caps of all customers on its website. So the commission has also tried to ensure that all these schools indicate the feeders of customers, because the unmetered customers are usually postpaid customers who are issued bills. So on the bill issued to each customer, there is a line item which is the feeder. So you know your feeder is either 83H4 if you are in Abuja, and then you know your business unit to be probably Kwarimpa business unit. So that's the only item the customer needs to know from his bill. So based on that, he will also check on the commission's website and he will see the discourse feeders on the website, and then he will select his own feeder. Under the business unit column, he will see the 83 feeder and you see the cap for the feeder. So he needs to confirm that the bill issued to him does not exceed that 200. Where it has exceeded the 200 that is on the commission's website, then there's a problem which he needs to escalate. So if the customer confirms that based on the bill issued to him, the energy he's billed is above, for example, the 200 kilowatt hour that is on the commission's website for his feeder, then he has a case to escalate and seek redress.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Domo, but we'll still come back to it when we go further down the line. But before then, let me just head over to Helder now. What's the commission doing to ensure that distribution companies comply with the caps issued by the commission?
Yeah, so at close of every billing cycle, which normally is on the 15th of the next month for the consumption of the previous month, the discos are mandated to submit like a monthly billing report. So when they submit that report, the commission does a comparative analysis of the capping that was issued and then the billing report that was submitted by the discos. So any values that are above the capping stipulated by the commission, those figures are compiled, aggregated, and then sent to our legal licensing compliance division, the company of the commission that is responsible for the sanction of the discos that are defaulting. The sanctions actually come in two parts. The first one is a fine of 5% of the gross overbilled amount by the discos, and that one is normally removed from the discos admin OPEX. And then the second part of the sanction is a credit adjustment that will be issued to the customer. So the credit adjustment methodology is, let's say for instance, in January, a customer is supposed to be billed 200 kilowatts hour, but the discos ends up billing him like 230 kilowatts hour. In February, instead of 200, they also went ahead and billed him 220. And in March, instead of 200, they still went ahead and billed him 250. So the extras on top, which cumulatively in this instance add up to 100. For April, instead of the 200 that is supposed to be billed in this instance, the 100 that he has been overbilled previously will be removed from the current billing, that's the April billing.
Okay.
And then after the credit adjustment that discos would do, they are mandated to also send back a report of the credit adjustment that they implemented for the customers. So when we get that report, we analyze the report and then call random customers within the report to confirm that, yes, these credit adjustments have been implemented. And in the case of default, the sanctions are also shifted to the next month to ensure that the discos are compliant to the order on capping.
Okay, thank you so much, Helder. You talked about payment of estimated billing now. How do customers go about paying this estimated billing? Is there an account that's provided for them or they pay in cash to on site?
Basically, the customers are issued bills and the discos have various payment channels. Okay. You can actually go to the cash office and pay in cash, or their POS machine. You can even make bank transfers and bank payments. So there are so many payment channels that are available for customers to pay.
Okay, so at this point, it will be okay to warn customers against paying in cash to officials.
Yes. They have cash office at their business units, so we can actually pay either in cash or some have POS machines that you build and they transfer into the account of the discos.
And ensure that you collect a receipt.
Yes, and the customers also can pay at banks. There are so many banks that can make your electricity payments.
Okay.
And then also, I think even some of these discos are now trying to deviate from cash payment.
Okay.
So they want to adopt the cashless policy. So that issue of trust where they think, they might pay cash and then it's not remitted, it's closed.
Oh, okay. So as it is, customers, you can hear now, make sure you don't pay cash to any official on site. Okay, we'll take a break. And when we come back, we will go over to Mr. Olisa to take us more on what to do when a customer confirms that they've been billed above the approved cap. It's still Electricity Town Hall right here on Radio Nigeria.
This is Electricity Town Hall on the network service of Radio Nigeria. We will be back shortly.
Are you tired of estimated billing? The federal government has various metering initiatives so that customers on all electricity supply bands can get free meters. However, demand is high and supply is being phased. If you don't want to wait, you can get your meter through the meter asset provider, MAP, MAP scheme and get refunded in energy credits. With a meter, you get accurate billing and greater control over your electricity costs. Contact your disco today to request a meter. Visit www.nerc.gov.ng or contact the NERC call center via 0201 344 4331 for details. NERC, keeping the lights on.
We are back with Electricity Town Hall on the network service of Radio Nigeria.
Welcome back. It's still Electricity Town Hall on the network service of Radio Nigeria. We're discussing metering initiatives in Nigeria electricity supply industry. And we've been speaking with the principal manager of NERC, Mr. Adamu Ibrahim.
Thank you, David.
Okay, now moving on to Mr. Olisa. Now, what should I do if I confirm that I've been billed above the approved cap?
Since the program began, we've tried to see how customers can get relief, from this particular issue that you mentioned, like the various mechanisms that the Commission has instituted to prevent this sort of thing from happening. But it does happen, and we know that it brings customers a lot of distress when it does. But we want to use this medium to also reassure customers that there are very formal procedures where their rights are protected, where we ensure that they get value for what they pay for. So where a customer experiences such, meaning that he has been billed more than the required cap on his feeder, we first commend the customer for showing that kind of diligence, which is what we expect from all customers. They have to properly scrutinize their bills every month. And then the whole idea that what they do is that they can start immediately to institute the process of establishing a complaint. The complaint is a redress mechanism that is guided by instituted procedures by the Commission, where they go firstly to their discos to make a formal complaint in writing. Where they are unable to write, they have people that will assist them take down their complaint in any language that they are comfortable with. And the expectation is that the complaint will be resolved within the prescribed timeline of 15 days. That is what the Commission actually gives the disco to resolve such complaints. Earlier on, my colleague Helder mentioned very stiff sanctions that the discos have faced in the past, where customers were subjected to billing above the required caps. And if, perchance the customer, after 15 days, has not received notice of adjustment of his bill or correction of that issue that he raised, then he is free to escalate the complaint to the Commission's forum offices. The forum offices is the next step in the customer redress mechanism process, where he will take evidence of having laid the complaint at the disco and then lay it at the forum. The forum is sort of like a quasi-judicial administrative process that invites the customer and invites the disco after a due period also of 10 days. They will give the disco 10 days to respond to that complaint. And if the complaint is not addressed, they will invite both parties for a hearing. The hearing will have like quasi-judicial setting where there is a chairman, there are other members of the forum, and they will listen to both parties lay their claim. Where the customer has a strong claim that on the evidence of what is before the forum, he has been billed above what he ought to have been paid given the caps by the Commission, then the forum will issue a ruling. And that ruling is binding on all parties. Most times we have a very high compliance to the ruling of the forum. The discos are compelled to obey the rulings of the forum. And if, again, because there's nothing that is impossible, perchance for some reason, the discos don't adhere to the ruling of the forum, then the customer is free to now escalate that issue directly to the Commission. There are different means the customer can do so. He can put it in writing. He can put a call through to our call center. But what we've seen typically is that at the very first instance, where the customer lay their complaint, most of the complaints are resolved at that instance. My colleague Helder mentioned very stiff penalties and sanctions that the discos have faced in the past for breaching these caps, and certainly it doesn't make good business case for them to continue to accrue fines and penalties. It dents their reputation, it dents their business, and that is not what they like to do.
Okay, away from that, in an event when a particular area has received either limited or no power supply over a period of time, are they still expected to stick to the cap for that region?
I mentioned earlier that the Commission issued caps on a monthly basis. Okay. And when issuing the caps, the Commission also take into consideration the energy supply to the area. So each feeder has its energy cap. So where there's a reduction in the energy offtake by the disco, for that period, the caps also go low. So the caps also go up and down based on the energy offtake by the disco. So once they receive less energy, the cap for those feeders will be reduced.
Okay.
It's a monthly thing.
Okay, the monthly thing.
Yes.
Okay. And it's advisable that every customer keeps track.
Yes.
Of this particular.
Exactly. So if, for instance, in March your cap is 200 kilowatt per hour, most likely by April it can either be 212, 215, or even less, 198, 192. So it depends on the energy offtake by the disco.
Well, from your experience, do you think that with this information available to Nigerians, do they actually use it? Do you think they access those information to use it to their advantage? Do they take advantage of it?
Yes, for most of the customers that are following up with the activities of the Commission, where the Commission organized town halls, we are always on the social media handles, just like we mentioned, we're on Facebook, we're on X, we're on Instagram. So a lot of channels are being used to educate customers on this issue of capping.
Thank you.
Why they need to also monitor their caps.
Oh, thank you. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Adamu. Ahmed, I'll come to you now. I just you've been waiting to just let out all you know about this. What should a customer do if the cap of his or her feeder is high and consumption is low?
Basically, what the customer should do ideally should be to get a meter. These caps are a function of the average consumption of metered customers on the feeder. You get. So another important another thing that we want to achieve by this particular initiative is to say, let us drive metering. Let customers go and get meters. So if your consumption is lower than the cap of your feeder, what it means is you need to take control of your consumption. And the only way you can take control of your consumption is by getting a meter. And how do you get a meter? We have different initiatives. But the most important one, and the one that I want to speak on right now, is the Meter Asset Provider Scheme.
Okay,
MAP.
That's a map.
Yes. So what do? You approach your disco. As we mean, I'm in Abuja. I approach Abuja disco to get a meter. I fill in the form, do the necessary documentation, pay for it, and then it is installed. It is expected to be installed within 10 days after payment. And if it's not done, then there is a way we monitor it and then take the necessary action. After installation, then you can vend, and then whatever you vend is what you consume. So basically, that has taken care of that particular problem. But then the interesting thing I want to speak about also is that, this thing that you asked, you can reverse it the other way around.
Exactly, I was going to come to that.
So discos can be in a situation whereby they feel,
you're consuming much more than the cap.
Yes.
Okay.
And then also the answer is the same. Go and meter these customers. So the disco should find a way to meter the customers.
But I've also heard about metering. Okay, you have something to add, Mr.
Yes, okay. So the most also important thing about the Meter Asset Provider Scheme is that the customers get refunded for the cost of the meter.
Interesting.
Yes.
So what you pay for, you get refunded for it.
Okay,
So
how does that happen?
if I pay for a meter, X amount, I'm expected to get refunded by the disco that same X amount over a specific period of time.
through
And
energy credits.
Yes.
Okay,
Through
through energy credits.
And
right.
then it will interest you to know that the commission actually monitors that. We have a reporting template for that, and then we've gone ahead to also ask the discos to be publishing this on their website, and it's something that we are going to be monitoring very well.
Okay. Now, talking about when you say when we flip the script, definitely when a disco feels a customer is consuming much more than at the cap of an area, he should definitely be metered. Can you enforce meter on a customer? Is it possible?
Yes. So the commission has directed discos that any customer that rejects meter should be disconnected. So it's not an optional thing. Once the disco comes with a meter to meter a customer, the customer has no reason to reject a meter.
You said something about initiatives earlier. There are initiatives that gives out free meters, and there are initiatives that you pay upfront and then you get refunded. In the case where there are no meters available at that time, what happens?
Firstly, to begin with, under the map, the Commission has also instituted a lot of checks to ensure that there's adequate supply of meters. Behind the scenes, on a bi-monthly basis, the Commission takes steps to ensure that there are adequate supply of meters on a willing buyer, willing seller basis. Meaning that for every disco, there is a minimum threshold of quantity of meters that they should provide into the market before they are allowed to publish the prices. So this is one of the first level checks that the Commission uses to ensure, that there is sufficient quantity for those who want to buy. Do you understand? To make sure that there is sufficient numbers for them to go ahead and buy. So we've almost never heard, that customers under the MAP framework went to buy meters, and there was unavailability. The only thing is that maybe at the initial stage, you might have varying prices within a disco, because like I said, it's a willing buyer, willing seller. Some maps may offer their meters at higher cost, others at lower prices, but there's always sufficient stock to make sure that there's availability for customers to buy. And beyond that, we know that meters are very expensive. It's a very big ask to ask somebody to come up with maybe 140,000 to 200,000 to pay for a meter. But these are measures that have been taken, to protect customers from the very arbitrary estimated billing and unfair caps as they might feel in some instances. But there are different metering initiatives where customers get quote unquote free meters, because not that it's really free, but the perception is that since there's no upfront cost, it's coming at a free level. So the federal government has instituted the Presidential Metering Initiative.
The PMI.
Yes, the PMI, where they hope to meter about 7 million customers over a period. And the phase one of that has successfully kicked off. This kicked off in October last year. And the specific directive for phase one is that all Band A customers should be metered. All Band A customers who have not yet been metered. We've all heard the furor over Band A, where there's some kind of price, difference between Band A and Band B. So maybe customers within that band are more sensitive, to how much they pay on a monthly basis. So the federal government, in recognition of that, sensitivity, has immediately deployed these meters to alleviate the burden of, payment to Band A customers, to be sure that in as much as you are grappling with, being able to manage your electricity consumption at different bill, you are not doing it, and joining the cost of buying meters at the same time. Then for all others, who cannot wait until where they are metered, you now have the MAP framework, like my colleague Ahmad mentioned, where, like I said, is a willing buyer, willing seller framework where you can go in, purchase your meters, and be rest assured that the cost will be refunded to you over a period in the form of energy token. So in any situation, in all frameworks, the customer is not losing anything. There are different ways all these schemes have been designed to protect the customer, to make sure they pay for what they consume and they don't go above,
The cap.
the cap. Yes.
Thank you
Thank you,
very
David.
much for that clarity. And we're wrapping up now as we go. I'll just ask, I know it's a growing population, but when do you think it will be possible to meter the entire nation?
There's a lot of commitment on the side of the discos, on the side of the federal government, all the stakeholders, in fact, to close the metering gap.
Metering gap.
But we also consider the logistics behind it, because this is like visiting every household in
Definitely.
Nigeria, either to put in a new meter or to recertify the meters.
And as I said,
you
it's
know.
a growing population and a growing household.
Exactly,
We
So,
hope-
so the federal government has, under the PMI, again, set a very ambitious target. I think this is one of the largest in the history of the country, where they expect to close the metering gap within 4 years.
Wow.
We expect it to be closed, at the maximum, and it has already started, and we hope that we'll have very good tales to tell in the very near future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Olisa, for that. And I encourage all Nigerians to take advantage, or all households to take advantage of this opportunity. Thank you very much. And this is where we end today's edition of Electricity Town Hall on the network service of Radio Nigeria. And I've been speaking with two managers from the NERC, Mr. Adamu and Mr. Chukwuma Olisa. Thank you once again for joining me on the program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
And I've got an assistant manager of the commission, Mr. Ahmed Dalhatu, and an analyst, Mr. Helder Zama. Thank you once again for joining us.
You're welcome, David.
Thank you.
Thanks to the production team, studio manager Phineas Udeyo, facilitator Conrad Labe, producer Sunday Goche. Special thanks to our executive producers Hussein Akira and Nsoshima Ki. I am David Umar. See you next Monday for another insightful edition of Electricity Town Hall.